2. I could only find 2 lenses in existence with the focal length of 31mm. One is a Pentax 31mm f1.8, but that's not the one we'll be talking about today. No, today the lens with the strange focal length we'll be talking about is the new Dulens 31mm APO Mini Prime Cine lens. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and be sure to first check out my previous video going over 3 of the Dulens APO Mini Prime set and the specifics of the images of the 85mm. You can find that video in the top right corner of this video or in the description, as I will only be going over the 31mm in this video. And while you're here, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to not miss my future videos, including the 58mm video that will be coming out soon. Now that you've liked this video and subscribed, let's take a look at this lens. First, we're going to start with the focal length. As I mentioned, 31mm is very unusual. You only ever see crazy focal lengths like this on vintage, APS-C, or high-end Cine lenses, but never for the general consumer market nowadays. 31mm being wider than a 35mm obviously gives you a larger field of view, and paired with the distortion this lens has, the center seems to pop out of the image, giving the viewer a feeling of immersion. Like the other lenses from this set, the aperture goes all the way up to T2.4 or f2, and I forgot to mention in the previous video, but the minimum aperture is T16. This may or may not be small enough for brighter situations, so an ND is a must when shooting outdoors in the sun. The minimum focus distance is about 38 centimeters or 1 foot 3 inches, which is not really close considering the wide field of view. For example, my Sigma 24-70, on which I filmed the product shots, have a close focus of 18 centimeters, which is pretty much all the way up to the front element. Anyway, this lens is the quote-unquote heaviest of the set released thus far at 550 grams, a whopping 20 grams heavier than the next heaviest. To put into scale, 4 grapes has a mass of approximately 20 grams. Anyway, as far as physical characteristics go, I went over in the last video, so check that out. But in summary, they are all of identical size and build quality, and they all have a $999 US MSRP. Now, let's look at what sort of images this lens can produce. I went over briefly in the last video, but the 31 looked a bit warmer compared to the 58, which also was slightly warmer than the 85, but it's a small enough difference that you can easily correct in post. So these example shots are the same case as the previous video. Essentially, it's just street photography with uncontrolled lighting. I just pointed the camera at what looked cool. A Nissy Black Mist 1/8 was used for the shots in the yard and strip mall, and nothing was attached to the lens on the plane in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. The thing that was extremely noticeable was that there was a significant amount of flaring, glaring, and halation going on, almost like there already was a mist filter applied. Although I think this was more with really bright levels of light, like sunlight or looking directly into streetlights, and only happens when the light source is at an angle relative to the lens. Here's an example of what I mean. The flare is well controlled in the center of the frame, but as I pan, the light starts to glare. Still, other than the halation, the same beautiful rainbow flares streak across the image under bright light like the rest of the set, and a warm haze surrounds the light source. And here's probably my favorite part of the lens, the distortion in the bokeh. Wide open, the bokeh in the center is nice and round with soft edges that are made even softer with a mist filter and some added grain in post. But as you go closer to the edges, the background begins to swirl a bit. Again, not as crazy as the Helios, but still noticeable enough for it to be maybe considered a feature. When there are lots of particulate sources of light, like the sky or the sun behind a bunch of leaves or branches, or building lights, they just start going ham. I wouldn't recommend using building lights like this one on this hotel, cause first of all, it looks ugly to begin with, and it looks really gross when it's out of focus. Not a flaw of the lens, just an ugly building. I think this is just my lack of skill, but I seem to miss focus with this lens pretty often. Wide angle on the dinky low resolution LCD screen of the FX3 is just impossible, so I would recommend a bigger monitor with good focus assist. I always use an Atomos Shinobi when I'm not traveling. Also, something about the focus gear felt off or different than what I'm used to, like I felt like I was missing focus more often than usual. I think it's got something to do with the curve of focus throw versus distance. I don't know the technical term for that, but I'll have to report back after I get to use it a lot more. Also, as with the other 2 Dulens Primes I got, the focus breathing is quite noticeable if you know what to look for, but it's not that hard to fix in post, assuming you even noticed in the first place. So there you go, a quick review of the 31mm T2.4. 30 to 35 is my favorite wide-angle focal length on full frame, and this lens nails the look just like the rest of the set. Again, go watch my 85mm review and subscribe to stay updated for the 58mm that. Thank you for watching, stay safe, don't die. See ya.